Welcome to Empowering Seniors. I'm your host, Katherine Ambrose, and today we're talking about safe driving and strategies to stay behind the wheel. I'm here with Dr. Kendall Krug. Dr. Krug, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Well, thank you very much for asking me.
You've been an optometrist for years, and today you serve with the state of Kansas. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
I found out after I retired I still had several jobs, so I worked with the Kansas School for the Blind and still do eye exams for them, but was recently appointed to the Medical Advisory Board for the Division of Vehicles, and that's the organization that reviews driver's licenses when there's problems with either vision or medical issues.
Talk to us a little bit about what's required in the state of Kansas regarding vision and driving, and maybe what's not required.
It's estimated that about 95% of the vision inputs or inputs for driving are from our vision. So vision's critically important, and that's why all states require a visual acuity requirement test, whether it's every 4 years or every 6 years. Interesting, in Kansas, it's like the majority of the states, you have to test at 20/40 in one eye with or without correction. If you cannot meet that standard, the examiner will send you to your eye doctor with a form that has to be completed, which takes you up to about 20/60. So if you cannot meet that criteria, then your license is going to be revoked or it's going to be going to medical review status. So there's still ways of getting a license in Kansas, but it's not as simple as just going to the DMV office. You'd actually have to work with your eye doctor and your medical doctor and have more forms completed.
So is it possible that you might obtain a new driver's license or get it renewed, but your vision might not be quite up to par, and this is something you want to be aware of and discuss with your optometrist?
Correct. You know, the DMV personnel are not eye doctors. They are trained to take measurements, but there's a lot of things that can affect our vision, especially as we get older. There are normal conditions like cataracts that can be fixed that might limit your vision, but then there are also degenerative conditions such as glaucoma, macular degeneration that can cause you to fall below the vision standards. Doesn't necessarily mean that you would not be able to get a license, but you have to go through additional testing to get that. Besides the visual acuity requirements, the state may require your eye doctor to do a visual field test or do other things and submit a report to the state.
How does eyesight change as you age? And I would imagine that sometimes it's so subtle you're not really aware of it.
You know, that's the way it is for most people in my experience until they're limited by what they can do. You know, when they can no longer read their phone book, they need to go get their reading glasses. When they show up at the driver's license office and they say you don't pass, then they get more concerned and they go see their eye doctor. So yeah, vision changes. The vision changes may just be a simple prescription change. So we certainly recommend for seniors and pretty much anybody over 50, they should have an annual eye exam because we're not only looking for glasses, but you know, maybe you need a simple vision change and that will qualify you for your driver's license. But we're also looking for eye disease that could potentially be a sight-threatening condition for the rest of your life.
We've had experts on the show before that have talked about your field of vision changing. What happens when your field of vision is limited and you don't have that peripheral vision? What are some of the surprises that can happen when you're driving?
Yeah, we're all familiar with straight ahead vision. That's what we use for reading signs and reading books. And that's about 5% of your central vision. So that means about 95% of the visual perception that we have is actually in your periphery. And the peripheral vision works a little bit different. It doesn't have color and detail, but it's very sensitive at night, and it's very sensitive to movement. So you can see that seeing obstacles when you're driving, cars coming up on the side, that's very important to have peripheral vision. And unfortunately, Kansas doesn't have a restriction for that in the current driving statutes. There's no limitation. If you end up on a medical review, they can request a peripheral vision test. But studies are showing, and these are published studies, that peripheral vision, contrast vision, being able to see in low light situations, are actually a better predictor of crash risk than just the standard visual acuity test.
So why is that? Is that because you can become startled because you didn't see a car or something, and you see it late, and so it startles you.
Yeah. A black letter on a white eye chart is not the same as being in the real environment where things are dynamic and you've got contrast issues. Things aren't perfectly black and white. You've got this field of vision issue. We also look at distractions. Too many things going on in the environment, especially driving in Wichita. Throw in some road construction, bad lighting, it all contributes.
So sometimes people will just realize that they don't care to drive as much when it's dark. And is that a natural part of aging, or are some people able to drive at night?
Of course, there are specific eye diseases that cause what we call night blindness. That's a bad term. But things like cataracts, retina disease will reduce your ability to see at night. I worry about putting the heavy tints on people's windshields because, that's nice during the day, but that's going to limit your vision at night. The driver's restrictions that we can put on can be for daytime only. So those are some of the things we look at is, should this person be driving at night?
Great information, Ken. We have a few other voices to chime in on this topic as well. Officer Mock, thank you for being here today.
Certainly.
What are some of the concerns you have with driving as you age?
So we talk about driving as being a complex activity, right? So it takes hand-eye coordination, coordination with your feet, eye-foot coordination, I suppose. Just different activities, a lot paying attention to what's going on around you. And we know as we age, some of that becomes slower and slower, right? So we want the people, as they age, to recognize that and to keep themselves safe on the roadway and those around them safe as well.
What kind of restrictions are there as people age, if any, that people might want to be aware of?
So Kansas doesn't have any age restrictions for driving. You're not required to go do an annual test like some states do. So Kansas doesn't have any age restrictions for driving. You're not required after you've reached a certain age to take another driving test. So Kansas safety plan is built around making sure that you understand your abilities and that if people have concern, they can express that to the Department of Revenue, who controls the driver's license in Kansas. Or if law enforcement has to become involved, we can send people for extra testing as well.
I know distracted drivers is a big issue, and cell phones are obvious, but what are some of the other distractions that could cause us to have a crash or a near miss?
Distracted driving, like you said, cell phones gets the most attention on that, but really it is anything that takes your attention off of a driving activity. So if you reach down and turn the car radio, that's a distraction. If you are talking to your passenger and you turn and look at that passenger, that's a distraction. So anything that takes your time and attention away from watching the roadway in front of you. And people don't think about how fast you're actually moving when you're driving a car. It's normal for us, right? Going 50 miles an hour, that's normal. But when you think about how many feet you're covering in that time, it's a lot faster than what you realize. So a second distraction, you've covered a whole lot of ground and might not be able to react to something because you've been distracted by it.
It sounds like we have to go back to the days when we first learned to drive, both hands on the wheel and really paying attention.
We know nationally that the people that are most likely to get into wrecks are the very inexperienced drivers, and then people as their skills are kind of deteriorating or changing, I guess is a better way of saying that. So the fundamentals of driving become more important then, right? So, making sure you're paying attention to what's in front of you, using the good driving form, the 10 and 2, minimizing what's going on in the car that would distract you from the most important task of traveling down the road safely. So, what seems like a normal and easy and everyday activity like walking to us, right? Driving is like walking. We've done it for years and years and years, but it is a complex activity. And so as you age, you need to recognize that and make sure that you're doing everything you can to use the good form and skills to drive safely and successfully.
And today there might be more distracted drivers than ever, and so engaging in the fundamentals is so important because there's drivers of all ages distracted with their Facebook and reading emails and whatever, and so we really have to be on our toes.
Yeah, so the number of cars on the roadway isn't going down, certainly, right? And Wichita's a growing community. More and more people are moving in. More and more people are working in Wichita. So traffic's not going to get any better. So, one of the things that I talk about when I talk to public groups or whoever is that what our job is to drive not only defensively but courteously, right? So you've got to watch out for others, but you've also got to make sure that you're not the problem, right? Like you've got to make sure that you're driving in a manner that is the way you would want everybody else to drive around you. And, at least kind of looking around in society today, the perception is that we're kind of losing that courtesy, right? Like road rage incidents are up. Those kinds of things are happening. So we have to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
And this show airs across most of Kansas, so when drivers are traveling on country roads or traveling on highways, how often do you find that seniors have gotten lost?
As we age, where we're not familiar with, it's a little harder to navigate, right? Like so, the advantage is we live in a day and age where we have almost everybody has in their pocket a map, right? You don't have to fold out the map and look at the roadways anymore. You can use turn-by-turn voice instructions on your phone. And I think what we see with a lot of older drivers is if they're outside of their area or their comfort zone somewhere where they haven't driven all the time, it's easier for them to become lost or confused. Or if you're coming from a rural area into a metro area where we have one-way streets and highway exits and entrance ramps and things like that, it is very easy to get confused. So if you use those phones that are giving you the turn-by-turn instructions, that prevents some of that.
Okay, so encouragement to learn new technology.
Yeah, learn technology, but when you're using those, you're listening for the voice. You're not staring at your phone as you're driving.
So don't let it distract you.
Right.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
We're talking to Ken Neely with the AARP, a driving instructor. Thank you, Ken, for being on the program.
Okay, you're welcome.
So I know you have a tremendous driving program through AARP. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so the AARP Driver Safety Program has been going on for about 40 years. There's been millions of participants that have gone through the program during those 40 years. The good thing about the program, we did introduce a totally revamped curriculum in 2022. So we've updated it with a lot of things. One of the themes that we use throughout the program is change, because we know that car technology, roadways have changed. We're getting a big mix of traffic, pedestrians, bikes, motorcycles, mopeds, and all of those type of vehicles that affects our driving habits and introduce a situation where we need to be more cautious in our drive and be more aware of our surroundings.
And so people can maybe get a discount on their car insurance by going through this course.
Yeah.
And it's a thick book. There's a lot of information in it. It's brand new. And it sounds like people are excited about taking the class.
Right. Yes, that's true. So there is, you check with your insurance agent to see what the discount is. Most of the participants that come through the class find that the insurance company will give them a discount. It varies based on insurance company, agents that you use, and so forth. But a lot of the students that come through are repeat. The certificate is good for 3 years, and so then you'll be notified at the time that your certificate is expiring. Then all you have to do is repeat the course. The benefit to that is that new information that comes through, we can update the course with the new information. So you're always getting new updated information when you repeat after that 3-year period of time.
And how long is the class?
Class is 4 hours.
4 hours, jam-packed with information.
Right, that's true.
Okay. What inspires you to teach this class, Ken?
Well, 2 things that inspired me to teach it. One, I did see a benefit in taking the class when I took it, and I saw a lot of good information. At the end of the class, they asked for volunteers. At the time that I volunteered, we were short on instructors here in the Wichita area is part of the South Central Kansas area, which is called Zone 6, and so we were short on instructors in the area, and so I decided to sign up to help teach it.
What have you noticed with some of the students? How do they react to some of this new information?
The reaction is mixed. We find that some students are coming in, they do have newer cars with the newer technology, and they are interested in knowing more about that technology and how to use it and how it can keep them safe. The other thing is that they sometimes is a little leery about using it. Mainly, they're concerned with how well it's designed, maintained, and things like that. So we find that, some of them are hesitant, especially older drivers, to using it. Some of the things that the one thing that they tend not to like is the collision avoidance feature. They feel like they're more in control if they're, braking on their own rather than having the car tell them when it needs to brake. But, that is shown to really reduce crashes, and the statistics bear that out, and so we always encourage them to at least, utilize it, especially if you're driving in a really congested area.
Well, thank you, Ken, and thank you for being a driving instructor for AARP and for being on the show today.
Okay, then, thank you.
Candace, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about safe driving and the alternatives for those that aren't driving. If you could share a little bit about what your department does.
Sure. Thank you for having us. My name is Candace Bonison. I've been here with the Sedgwick County Transportation Program. It is a program that's ran through the Department on Aging. So, of course, we're very vested in older adults and persons with disabilities. And so we've been offering the transportation for general public out in the communities for a little over 28 years.
Very good. And so there's a Department of Aging in every single county across the country. So it's not just Sedgwick County, but all counties have some of these services. And what are some of the special things that your department provides?
Well, specifically with transportation, we are garnered and trained in assisting individuals from door to door to get them to and from their facilities. Our drivers are trained under a strict curriculum, knowing how to secure, especially if there's a mobility device. Individuals, we want it to be on a friendly basis. We want them to feel invited and welcome to use the service, and that is not just necessarily about older adults and persons with disabilities, but it does have that general focus on transportation.
And is there a cost for this? How does that work?
Currently, our Sedgwick County Transportation Program is a $3 per one-way trip. So a round trip, even if you live in Cheney, is $6. So it's very reasonable. The individuals get to go to and from the community of their choice within Sedgwick County.
When you say community, what do you mean?
Well, like we do service everybody in the outlining areas outside of the city of Wichita, and we do bring them to Wichita, mostly because that's where general services are. But there are those individuals that maybe have an outreach service that is within Derby or Park City. So if we have that capability, we'll make it so that they can get to that destination.
How far in advance do they need to let someone know that they need a ride?
With demand right now, we do have a 7-day window. So that's the furthest that we do accept service requests for the transportation. And then they can do it as much as the same day if we have an open availability.
Okay, so same day if available, otherwise up to 7 days in advance, you could arrange a ride. So can they get a ride from their home to a doctor's office and back, or?
It's for any general purpose whatsoever.
That's amazing. What about going shopping?
Absolutely.
Really?
We do promote that. That's a part of living. That's a lifestyle that everybody should be able to have given them. And so as a general public transportation program, that is something that we do pride ourselves on, making sure that they go to the requests that they'd like to within the availability.
Is there any restriction on how often you can use the service?
No, it is first come, first serve.
I am just astonished. This is amazing. And well, we're certainly glad that those services are available to people. So contact your Department of Aging to find out more about rides for seniors and
Persons with disabilities.
Okay.
And our program is just the Sedgwick County Transportation. And our hotline number is the 316-660-5150. And then there's also a major website. I know that this is for all of Kansas. It's called ksrides.org. And any individual that's looking for a general public service across the state can identify that through that website.
So if you're not driving these days for whatever reason, there are resources out there so you can still keep your independence and get where you need to get.
Independence and be mobile, yes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Candace.
Thank you.
And we're back with Dr. Krug. Ken, thank you so much. So one of the biggest fears that people have is giving up driving. And so what can you say to maybe give them a little bit of hope on when to know when the time is right?
It's always a difficult issue, and because vision is so integral to getting your driver's license, it's something that comes up in our doctor-patient relationships way too often, and it is hard, especially in a state like Kansas that's much rural, and people require their vehicle and their independence to drive just to live. So several things that can be done. We can suggest restrictions and try to appeal to the patient to self-restrict. If that's not successful, the Department of Revenue has in the Division of Vehicles, they have a letter of concern form that anyone can fill out, and there's liability protection with that. So basically, you just fill out your information, what your concerns are about this patient, and that starts the whole driver review process. Doesn't take the person's driver's license away, but it requires additional testing. Some of the things we've talked about earlier. A form will go out to the patient. They have to have their eye doctor fill it out. They have to have their medical doctor fill it out, and then this is reviewed by the medical review board, and then a decision is made. At that point, the patient's license may be revoked. They always have a chance for appeal. A recommendation for a behind-the-wheel drive test is often made, so the patient could potentially continue to drive on a restricted license if they can pass a behind-the-wheel test. And those are given fairly often.
And if someone really wants to keep driving, what are some of the strategies that they might be able to employ to keep themselves a safer driver?
Vision, vision, vision. Make sure your glasses are up to date. Make sure your headlights and windshield are clean. Watch the time of day that you're driving. There may be certain times when the sun is low on the horizon that you don't want to be driving into it, so maybe daylight, noon hours, 10 to 2, something like that. Avoid congestion, avoid school zones, and things like that. Maybe avoid nighttime driving. Plan your route. Know where you're going. We got a lot of road construction, so it is confusing. One of the other speakers had talked about, everybody's got GPS on their phones and in their cars. Utilize that technology, not to watch the map, but to get the turn-by-turn direction so you know that a turn's coming up.
And then outside of vision, doing everything you can to stay physically fit. And you can hire someone to help you with driving lessons. You can take the AARP classes. What are some of the other strategies that people can employ that you've heard of?
Yeah, we talked about oculomotor issues, being able to see, but also having the muscle coordination and strength to reach everything. Make sure your vehicle fits your body, and things like that. We don't have any driving. There are some private driving instructors in Wichita, but a medical-based rehabilitation driver's review, the only one available is in Kansas City.
Okay.
And that utilizes certified driving instructors, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. And there is a cost to that.
Okay. Something to check into. Maybe that can come this direction as well.
Yeah,
And
we hope.
Dr. Krug, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yep.
And thank you for watching. If you have questions about this topic or any of the others that we cover, you can reach out to us at 316-686-4500 or email us at empoweringseniors@kpts.org. I'm Katherine Ambrose. This is Empowering Seniors, and we hope to see you next time.